because it's very needed for them to survive in today's market. And beyond companies, you also get organizations like incubators that are increasingly giving money to ideas like Swipe Sense for them to make their idea a reality. So for example, HealthBox is an organization that's trying to innovate in healthcare. And they gave $50,000 and mentorship and professionals to 10 teams last year and the year before who had new ideas for the healthcare industry. So that's how Swipe Sense and now Lunalights are getting the money they need and the mentorship and the experience they need to bring an idea from just an idea to a real idea, a real working solution in the world. And so if ever you have ideas that you are looking for, I really recommend looking for incubators. Search incubator healthcare, incubator car design, incubator social good. There's a lot of these type of companies out there all around the world looking for good ideas to help make a reality. So keep an eye out for those. They're increasingly seeing the profit and the good things that you can get from innovation. And so to help you and other companies and other teams do this, the companies that are finding success with human-centered design are increasingly refining the idea. They're looking for those methods that are successful. Because as I said, human-centered design is very young. There's still, confusion and different words. But now the books are starting to come out. Frog Design came up with their own toolkit to teach human-centered design to their employees. If you're looking to learn human-centered design a little bit better, we'll be having a full-day workshop on the 14th, so that's always good because you actually get to do it. But if you're looking to just read it and have an idea, Frog Design just released a toolkit. IDEO has their human-centered design kit. All these companies come up with the methods that best suit what their companies are doing. So for example, IDEO is good for nonprofits, and they have international work is where they focus on here. So you might have to look around and see what works best for you. Design for America just came up with their own design process. Right now it's only available to their students, but very shortly, in a few months, it'll be open to the public. But just look for design, human-centered design online. There's increasing amount of educational materials, and in the next few years, they'll begin to say the same thing. There'll be consensus through practice. So what are the barriers to success? So I love talking about human-centered design, saying, oh, the world's going to be beautiful, all the problems will be solved, but there are barriers. And there are reasons a lot of companies haven't taken on human-centered design. There's a lot of companies who believe it's a joke. There's a lot of social problems that have not yet been solved. And I want to talk about the barriers to that and why that is. So there's several big problems stopping human-centered design and the spread of it. The first is, again, I think partially the education system. So the education system emphasizes memorization over problem solving. It de-emphasizes the arts and creativity. So with the recession, increasingly around the world, school systems have taken out music classes, art classes, drawing classes, and emphasized maths and sciences. There's diminishing social skills because of technology, which I'll go into, and an increasing existing fear of failure. I think all of those are barriers to the spread of human-centered design and the success of that methodology. So to show that, I want to first talk about creativity. But rather than tell you about the problem with creativity, I'm going to show you. So I get to have fun. You guys are going to do this with me. So this is a paper clip. And I want you to come up with as many ideas as you can of things to do with a paper clip. Maybe it's an earring, maybe it's a keychain, a new zipper, but you need to come up with as many ideas as you can. So if you could use a pen and your piece of paper that you have in front of you, just write down or draw as many ideas as you can come up with. And it's only going to take 2 minutes because I want to demonstrate a point in a very cruel way. But it's fun. So feel creative. I'm asking you to think like a child again. The craziest ways you can think, things you can do with a paper clip. If you don't have a piece of paper, if you could put your hand up, I'll try and get you one. Anyone? Sticker? Good. Just try. This might be difficult. It's fine.
write in Chinese and then translate into English.
Yeah, I won't look at your piece of
You know,
paper.
I often write my own language first and then translate.
Yeah, it's honestly just the idea, and you're the only one who will see the piece of paper.
Not a test.
If it's hard, that's okay. If it's easy, congratulations. If you can't come up with anything, just draw a paper clip. See if you could look at it in a different angle that helps you come up with ideas.
Try to think how you played when you were 6 years old. That's what you want to reconnect with that child inside you.
I'm going to wait until I see everyone staring in space confused. 30 more seconds. Just try and get another idea if you can. Okay, stop. All right. Who here came up with 5 or less ideas? Yes, creative group. Who here came up with 10 or less ideas? Just put your hand up. Yeah, I came up with 8 my first time. So who came up with 20 or less? You're all geniuses. I see the pieces of paper. There's only 5 or 10 words on most of those pieces of paper. Does anyone have a really creative idea that you want to share? Does anyone want to tell us what they came up with? Yeah.
Water slide.
A water slide. Yes. Amazing. So those are the type of ideas that normally are very hard to come up with because a water slide. So it's a simple something to sit down and slide down.
No, the whole thing could be a tube. Whole thing you go tubing and
So a giant yes, water slide. I don't know how to explain it. I don't know how to explain Chinese. The point is, it's like a very big, like a ride in an amusement park, like a roller coaster in an amusement park. Yeah, and so how could you do that, right? A paper clip is this big, and it's made of metal, and how are you going to write on it? But what's interesting is that adults know that paper clips are this size, and they're made out of metal. And how could you ever make a paper clip a water slide? But children don't really think that way. Children think, what if a paper clip is bigger? What if it was a huge paper clip? And people who are familiar with this type of exercise start thinking differently. What if the paper clip is made out of cardboard, wood, plastic? What if it's invisible? What if it's huge? And so when we try this exercise, traditionally we think of paper clip. When I did this the first time, I came up with 8 ideas, and they were all like earrings, the same size, the same type of material. And most people doing this exercise will come up with 5 to 10 ideas. Creative types might come up with 12 in the amount of time I gave you. Children come up with 50 in the same amount of time because they're thinking of the different materials, the different sizes. They're not afraid to say paper clips could be bigger than the planet, bigger than the universe. And that gets them thinking in a very different way. And in fact, some of these kids, when given enough time, can come up with 200 ideas of different things to do with a paper clip, which I can't even imagine. And so creativity is difficult. Our current education system and our profession, we need to know this. We need to think of what we can actually do with the things in front of us. And that's normal. That's part of what our world needs. And that's what traditional design needs. You need to be realistic. But in a world where you need to innovate constantly, you need to start asking those silly questions. What if a paperclip was 100 times bigger? What if it was 1,000 times bigger? And we need a school system that starts to teach that and allows us to just think differently. And you still need to know what a paperclip really is, and you still need to know its size. But you also need to be willing to think differently, and not just willing, but able and well practiced. Creativity is like a muscle. You have to use it. And if every day you do exercises like this, you'll start coming up with 1,000 ideas, because that's how you think. So children, before they go through the whole education system, are more creative than anyone else you'll ever meet. But that's not the only thing they're good at. I want to talk about fear of failure. I'm not going to make us do this one, but I'm going to tell about it. So you can give teams of engineers, teams of architects, interdisciplinary teams, some spaghetti. I'm sorry, it's a little blurry. You can give them 20 things of spaghetti, some tape, some string, and a marshmallow. I think you have marshmallows here. And you ask them to build the tallest structure or building or thing that they can build that can hold the marshmallow in a certain amount of minutes. You say 5 minutes or 10 minutes, go ahead and build. And when adults or teams of engineers especially, or teams of architects, because they know the rules, think of this game, they imagine these beautiful structures. They imagine all the different lines because they know what you need to make a building stand up. And they're like, oh, this is what we have to do, this is what we have to do. So they build it, they build it, they build it, and at the very end, at minute 5, they put the marshmallow on top. And this happens. The marshmallow is heavier, or their structure isn't strong enough. And more than you'd think, they fail. These teams are terrible at this game. The worst are architects. After that, it's engineers, because they know the rules. After that, you have teams of the same discipline. Then you have interdisciplinary teams are slightly better, but they're still terrible. But the best at this game are children. And that is because they're not afraid of trying it. They don't know the rules, and they don't care. They'll just put the marshmallow on it, they'll stab it, they'll try all these different things, and the structure will fall down, and they'll rebuild it, and it'll fall down, and they'll rebuild it. And so by the time it hits minute 5, they've built the structure 30 times. It doesn't matter if it's ugly, it doesn't matter if it obeys the rules, it holds the marshmallow. And they're not afraid to try, and they're not afraid to make those mistakes. But we are. We know, what if the structure falls down? Or that's not how you make this building. But kids aren't afraid to try something new, and they're not afraid of that failure, and it's really important to not be afraid of it. There's lack of social skills. Younger and younger, we're put in front of screens and TVs and computers. He's not talking to another person, he's looking at a screen that doesn't interact with him. How do people their whole lives who from a very young age look at computer screens, how are they expected to work in a team? When the person in front of them doesn't just obey their commands, but does things that make no sense or that they don't agree with. What happens when they challenge their beliefs? You need to know how to work with other people to be able to work in a functional team. And the key to human-centered design is not just a team, but it's a team with people who think differently. People who challenge what you believe. And this is not the best way to prepare for it. It has a lot of good things, but it's not the best way to innovate and to work in teams.
Like my son, who's now a Microsoft senior manager, and he's gotten a patent for an invention already. He worked for 5 years with a custom design car place in Detroit, creating special cars for Ford. And he said, Mom, engineers are really, there's a real problem with them. They don't talk to each other. Like, he said, I might be sitting this far away from Sky, and they would send each other emails instead of just going and talking. So he had to organize a beer night on Tuesday nights to get the engineers to go out and talk to each other. And that's very sad. Yes.
I've
And
seen
then they
that.
can't work as teams, you know? They don't have the social skills.
Yeah. Next time you're working next to someone, don't send them an email.
Yes.
Just talk to them. education system today doesn't highlight teamwork, doesn't highlight that interaction, it doesn't highlight acceptance of failure, and that's normal, because when the education system was designed and created, it was created for a world that didn't need those skills. A lot of companies, you might know, have these, these booths that people work in. You don't need to see anyone. You just have to do your task over and over again. It might be a little bit different, but after the Industrial Revolution and when technology first started changing to mass production, the key skills for companies was repetition and precision. The rest didn't really matter. And so they taught in our school systems everything you needed to know to master something and do it very, very well. They taught you how to memorize all the rules because you need those rules to do it well. They teach you to be afraid of mistakes because in companies where you mass manufacture something, if you make a mistake when you're putting a tire on a car, that car will crash and it will cause millions of dollars of problems if you do that mistake too many times. And so we are supposed to have a fear of failure. We're supposed to not be creative or ask questions. We're just supposed to do the same task over and over again because that's the jobs that we needed. But the problem is the world is changing. Those jobs are changing. That it's getting to the point where you can't just shove information in your brain and expect to do what's needed because we're in a new world. There's technology now, very smart, very quick technology. Robots or other types of technology are smarter. They're faster, they're stronger. They can do repetitive tasks better than any human. They can be more precise than any human. So where are all our jobs going to go, right? If we can't be more precise than them, and if we can't be faster than them, then what can we do that robots, that technology can't? And that is create. That is innovate. That is think outside the box. To this day, maybe it'll change, but no technology can do that. They can learn and repeat, but they can't create. They can't work in teams. So we have to move from a world where precision and repetitive tasks are disfavored over creative ones. And that means the education system has to change. It has to change to allow things like human-centered design. Human-centered design that uses teamwork and innovation. We need our classrooms to change from this to this. And it's started. This is a real classroom. It's beginning, but it hasn't spread yet. And so one of those things that I think we'll see in the next 5, 10, 15 years is more and more classrooms like this, so that we can start developing the skills that we need for this new technological age.
And one of our big problems and the reason that we're going around trying to educate people is that teachers are often very resistant to change. They're comfortable with the way they've been doing this for 20 years. I know the example of the country of Uruguay in South America. The government gave one laptop to every child in the country. Brilliant idea. They had an agreement with Microsoft, Apple, I can't remember. So guess what? Those laptops were never used for education. Why? Because the teachers were afraid of the laptops. They were afraid of technology. No one trained them before they handed out the laptops to the children. And so the children ended up just using the laptops at home for fun. And that's a tragedy, and it could have been avoided, again, with human-centered design, if someone had gone into the classroom to observe before all the laptops were given out. What a waste.
So there are definitely challenges to this change. But I think because of the pressures in the economy and the pressures with thousands of people losing their jobs, something's going to have to change. I'm not saying it's going to be smooth. I'm not going to say it's going to go fantastically. There's probably going to be a lot of problems, a lot of stress, and a lot of pressure. But the change will have to come to be able to deal with the new technological developments. And we're going to have to accept making a mess. We're going to have to accept, and not just accept it, but encourage people to be creative. The education system is now going to have to change so that it no longer presents failure as a different direction from success, but rather on the way to success. You have to make mistakes if you're trying something new. This is the Einstein quote, that a person who never made a mistake never tried anything new. And we're now at a time where something new is every day. and you're going to make mistakes. And we can't live our lives afraid of everything we ever do because all those things will have mistakes in them. We have to start accepting those. And what's great is that that's starting. I'm starting to see that change in the education system. So the reason I'm here today was actually because I was funded by Northwestern University and Design for America to come share design thinking in other places. This is a class called Design Thinking and Communication, DTC. It's a master's course at Northwestern, and it's a whole master's just teaching human-centered design out in the community. They really teach this process because they see it as the future for education, for innovation. They see the future of their school lies in this type of teaching, and so they've created a program to do that.
And that's in the engineering
Department at Northwestern University. So if ever you're trying to do a master's, I don't work for Northwestern anymore. I wouldn't say if it wasn't good, but they do teach human-centered design. There's other programs. So Stanford Design School is teaching human-centered design. So these are just images from their website. But they have a whole program that teaches human-centered design. So these big name universities are realizing that this is what they need to do for their students to be successful later on. And that's the main goal of these universities. It's not just the traditional universities. You're starting to see very strange things. So I looked online for just innovation education. Oh, it rhymes. And I found this, Singularity University. I honestly don't know much about it, but it's a whole university in the United States that just teaches innovation. It teaches students to think outside the box. It doesn't teach anything that a normal university teaches. My understanding is that it doesn't have diplomas for like engineering or any topic. It just has a diploma of innovation and of new thinking. So yeah, preparing humanity for accelerating technology change. And more schools like that are popping up. You just have to listen and look for them, and you start finding them. There's this thing called the Moonshot program. The Moonshot is the belief that if we can get people to the moon, we can do crazier things like world peace. And so they give large amounts of money to crazy ideas. It's kind of like an incubator. This is an image from their education project. But there's more and more money and support for crazy innovation and ideas. So yeah, they believe that what you need to do is to look for a radical solution, a new crazy solution, using new crazy technology to solve the biggest problems. And that's where you need to be looking. And so that's what they teach. So there's money, there's companies, and there's school systems starting to make that change. And I think that's something to be really excited about, is that we're seeing that change happen now.
I was talking to Giselle this morning. I think it's like the new designers have their head in the clouds but their feet on the ground, so they can really help humanity. It's not so crazy.
Yeah, so it's moved beyond Design for America. This lecture isn't about Design for America and students, doing this in this organization. That's not what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to say that human-centered design is everywhere. It's changing everything. It's changing the education system. It's changing the businesses, and this is just an example of that. And that if you believe that human-centered design can make a change, then we need to be those agents of change. We need to be the ones encouraging human-centered design, encouraging creativity, encouraging the questioning, so that we can start using human-centered design all around the world. I would love it if in a year from now, 2 years from now, I came back and there was a design for Taiwan. I would love it. No pressure.
You can do it. Remember what Obama said? We can do it.
Absolutely. So if, I just want to end with this last question. If we can put a man on the moon, why can't we solve the human condition? Why can't we solve the most pressing challenges on this small world if we can already get off the world in the first place? So I hope that some of you will be the ones to start answering those questions. And whatever field you're in, whether it's design, engineering, arts, it doesn't matter. All that matters is that you start questioning and you use a smart process about solving problems. So that's all I have today.
Yeah, fits in.
Yeah, you can ask questions, just raise your hand and.
And if you don't want to say it out loud, just write it down and pass it to
Yes.
Harmony or anyone
Yes.
else.
Well, Design for America, it sounds like it started out as an initiative. Has it been institutionalized?
That's a great question. I guess I would want to answer it with a question. What do you mean by institutionalized?
Well, say for instance, when you say a lot of human-centered design courses are offered by universities, those are degree awarding courses, right?
Right.
So Design for America, if you sign up to it, or say if there are people here
Right.
who want to go after Design for Taiwan, by institutionalization, I mean, you have to go to the
Yes.
government for funding support and all that, right? So,
Absolutely.
right.
So that's a great question. What's interesting is that we've been going back and forth on whether we actually want Design for America to be institutionalized at all. There's pros and cons to that. So to some part, yes. So you start to see classes that teach the same idea as human-centered design, as Design for America, and give credit for it. The other thing is increasingly universities that have Design for America, when a student team comes up with an idea like SwipeSense, they can go to their dean or their professors and say, I have this idea, can I do this for a class? And most universities are willing to give them credit for independent research, it's called. So you have to have a sponsoring faculty member who believes that this is equivalent to a credit. But there hasn't been an automatic thing, it hasn't been systemized yet. So it's a case-by-case basis. You have to talk to your university and see if you can get credit for it. What's great about it not being a system yet is that it gives more freedom to the students to fail, to try new things. Because once it becomes part of the system, you get grades,
Right.
you get pressure, and people are less willing to try. So sometimes we really want it to be systemized because we want more time for the students to do it, and students are busy, they have a lot going on, but we also don't want the pressure. So what we recommend now for those teams is that they come up with the idea first on their own, and then if they want to really work on it, they talk to a professor and try and make it an independent study, that's what it's called. But I hope that with the development of classes, when more universities try to actually teach this, they'll find a way to make sure that the grades don't get in the way of the design process. So I hope that we'll start seeing it in more institutions.
Can I dovetail that? Please indulge me. Has Northwestern joined programs like Udacity and
Like what?
Udacity? I mean, courses, open courses online on the internet.
Yeah, I think they have an increasing amount of courses online. I can't tell you if DTC is online yet. I don't know.
It's
The
design thinking and communications
The
in the
masters.
engineering department.
Okay.
Yes, it was the masters I was talking about. I don't know. You would have to look it up. Yeah, that's a great question. Because I worked for Design for America, and Design for America is a student organization within Northwestern. So I actually only know a periphery of what Northwestern's policies are. But I do know they're starting to offer classes, and so I imagine that very soon they'll offer them online if they're not already doing it.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Any other questions about design in general, the process, the future? I can't tell the future, but I can try.
Can't predict that. We started something new for the future here.
What is the relationship between design and human-centered design?
Between design thinking and human-centered design? I used to hate that question because it's very tricky. I tried to explain this to Judy actually the other day. Design thinking is the process. It's the it's the science of using creativity and teams to solve complex challenges. So it's the steps that you take and the science of doing it. Whereas human-centered design is a type of design thinking that focuses on the human's needs. So it's the type of design that uses empathy and interviews and experience, that uses all the testing. It's like the exact type of steps. So human-centered design is a type of design thinking. But most people use it interchangeably. The actual definition is kind of confusing. Again, I think it's because it's so young. You read different definitions in different places. So that's how I've defined it. And I've read different divisions, because a lot of people say the same thing. If anyone has heard a different definition, I'm happy to hear it. but that's my understanding. So design thinking is the process, and human-centered design is a specific type of process where you talk to people and empathize with them.
So design thinking is more the general process,
It's the science.
the science, and then human-centered is the specific part of design thinking that you're emphasizing.
Yeah, no, I've asked myself that a lot. When I started this, I heard it interchangeably.
I asked her yesterday. I said, define the difference between, because I attended a design, I went and observed a design thinking and communications class in Northwestern, and that's last year. I was became very excited. I present a lot of education programs, and I have never been as excited as I've been about this one.
And that makes me actually want to bring up another point. There's another confusion. So human-centered design is just the process of talking to people and empathizing in those specific steps. But human-centered design is used a lot for, social challenges, global warming, homelessness, literacy. But it doesn't have to be. You can use human-centered design to design a new computer, because you'll talk to the person and you watch them use the computer and you see how they act. But human-centered design, because most people who use it for social good, most people think they're the same thing. That human-centered design means design for social good, but it doesn't have to be. It just generally is, because human-centered design is so good at solving those complex problems. So that's
It seems like that there are several terms that might be related to what we call human-centered design.
yes.
First of all, social design,
Social design,
and then
Can you hear me back there?
Yes.
human interface,
human interface,
human factor,
user design.
user design,
So again,
behavior design.
behavior. There's so many terms, I think, and they all actually highlight one specific aspect, but they have a lot in common. So if you hear social design, user design, interface design, human-centered design, you might want to make sure you know if they're talking about the same thing or if it's slightly different. But these terms will start clarifying in the next few years as the books are being developed, because the researchers and the teachers are just as confused. They're like, we can't do this. So yeah, there's a lot of terms and a lot of new design methods that are starting to copy or use similar methods as human-centered design, but are slightly different. So yeah, lots of terms, but that's why I like to just focus on the process itself. It doesn't matter what they're called as long as you understand what it's doing. But yeah, absolutely.
So from the top, I think from an environmental point of view, I think it's very important to have an environment that people have different kind of things, different kind of way of point of view for some specific problem. That is like heterogeneous.
It's like what?
Heterogeneous. I mean, not homogeneous, but
Oh, yeah,
heterogeneous.
yeah. Yes,
So
exactly.
I think for our society should be more endure for every different kind of voices. Even though some of them it sounds like radical.
Right. I completely agree.
For the society like Japan, it's like people are restricted by each other. Like they need to follow
Absolutely.
some rules.
Yeah, you'll get a lot of resistance to interdisciplinary work wherever you do it, and that's because it's never really been encouraged. For hundreds of years, it's not what you want to do. It didn't help. It didn't make it more precise. It didn't work better. It just brought up annoying questions that we already knew the answer to. And you'll get this in a lot of systems, and even though we're not used to it, and even though the education system isn't created for it, we still need to try and do it. So for example, I encountered that problem when I was at Cornell University, and these things have changed. So these universities are much better than they were before. I don't want to say that Cornell is a great school. When I started at Cornell, there was what we call silos. So all the different departments were very isolated. So I was a psychology major, and I wanted to do design for America. So I asked the design building if I could use their space. I just wanted to write on whiteboards. And so I emailed, I said, hi, I'm a student at this university. I just want to use this space. And I got an email reply saying it would be a dangerous precedent if I was allowed to use a whiteboard in their building.
You
Like, what do you
understand from precedent? It's like a new thing for any field, and then they first gave her permission, and they were afraid, oh my God, thousands of students are going to ask for permission, and they'll say, well, she did it, why can't I do it?
Exactly, but when I first heard that, I was very frustrated. I said, not making anything dangerous or violent. Why is this a dangerous precedent? I just want to create things. And they had never had requests like that, and they didn't know what that would mean if the department started interrelating, and they didn't know why I wanted it. It didn't make sense. They said, you're a psychology major, go do psychology things. I'm like, this is psychology. Why don't you understand? And eventually they gave me space. I had to work on it. It took me some 8 months. It actually took me 8 months of talking to faculty and the offices and the buildings to get access to that space. And I finally got it. And they were right in that it was a dangerous precedent, because after I went, Design for America was created, and then you had 70, 100 students from different disciplines using their space. And they liked it though. What's interesting is that they started to see the value of it. So once you make that first difference, that first change, that's all you really need. And there's a psychology reference, but you just need to get your foot in the door. So if someone's closing a door, you just put your foot in it, and then you can open it. And so,
And they might try to crush your foot. It's going to be painful, because any new idea is going to meet a lot of resistance.
So this is a new idea, and a lot of universities, a lot of classes, and a lot of teams, and more importantly, a lot of current designers will say this isn't design. You're not a designer. You're a psychology major. What are you doing? And it takes a lot of time to show them the value of it and to show them why it's important. And I think that's also why we should, I don't say that traditional design is bad. I think it's very needed. You need traditional design to perfect and improve and to make the ideas work in the first place. I can't make a car. I won't even try. But I can think about it and think, how do I do that differently? So there is resistance, and you have to expect that. You're absolutely right. You will see it. But hopefully it'll start to change.
In my own family, I told them I was coming, and I have a son who's an academic. He's an economist. He said, but Mom, you're an artist, you're a playwright, you're a writer, why are you doing this? And I said, because we have to have different points of view. We really inspire each other to think in a new way. Like the example of the spaghetti with the marshmallow at the top, the worst people were architects. You think they'd be the best, right? They'd be thinking all the laws of balance and weight, and instead they were the worst because they didn't know how to think outside the box. So I, my own family, I found resistance. You always, excuse me.
Always find resistance with something new. And sometimes the voice.
I think another.
Yes.
I think one of another important things I think is that you need to have the passion to solve that problem. I think most of the time it's about people want to solve this problem because he encounters some problem face, like doing his grandfather building the hospital.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's a great point. So human-centered design, as I said, you can use it for almost anything. You can design a car with it. You can design a better computer screen. But Design for America and a lot of, especially the social design companies, so the ones looking for the big social issues like homelessness, water conservation, they believe that you can really only do that if you're passionate about it and you're excited about it. And the reason we think that is, if I could work on, bringing water to certain parts in Africa, and I'm not a water engineer, I'm not a psychologist, I think that's an important problem. I think you need to get water to everyone, especially if they don't have water. But I'm not passionate about it. I think it's interesting, I think it's a good problem, and if I researched it, I'll work on it. But I won't be dreaming about it. I won't be thinking about it on my bus to and from work. I won't be calling my mom and my brother and saying, this is an important problem, why aren't you helping me? I won't really be passionate and push the boundaries But when people are passionate and when they really care about the problem they're working on, they think about it all the time. Yuri and Mert, the Swipe Sense guys, they live together, so they come back from work and they're still talking about their project. I don't think that's healthy, but they do it anyways. But they just love it so much. They talk about it all the time, and so their solutions are developed so much faster, and also they do much more research because they actually enjoy what they're working on. But what's interesting is I can turn that on its head. One thing about human-centered design is there's a step in research where you have to go interview people who are interacting with the problem. And you have to empathize, which means you really have to feel the problem that they're experiencing. And that's very good at creating passion and energy. So if I, right now, am not passionate about bringing water to thirsty villages in some African country, if I went there, and if I talked to them, and if I lived in that town, I might really start to care. And I might think it's a very big problem. And by talking to someone, if I have a friend now who's experiencing that problem every day, it's a real problem set. And it's not something I can just, turn off, because I know that this person is suffering for that problem. So I will work on it day and night, just like I would have if I was passionate at the beginning. So we find that in human-centered design, the most important step that people really can't skip is the empathy step. It's really interviewing, understanding, and getting to know the people who are suffering from that problem, because that can create the passion. Absolutely.
So find the empathy first.
Find the empathy. If there's one,
First.
Yeah.
There's so many problems that in the world that you have to find what you're going to be passionate about. I get so passionate I can't even talk anymore. But I didn't really understand the importance of lunar lights until my Aunt Ruthie, who was 88, fell down in her apartment. She wanted to live alone. She said, nobody's coming in to help me. I'm independent. And one night in the middle of the night, she fell down and was on the floor for 36 hours alone. My father thought she was with me. I thought she was with my father. We kept calling. Nobody answered. Finally, we went over there. And we said, you're not with her. I'm not with her. Something happened. And she'd been on the floor for 36 hours. And she survived. And then we said, okay, Aunt Ruthie, we gave her a solution. We said, put this little alarm necklace around your neck. And then if you insist on living alone, because she was terribly stubborn, even after she laid on the floor for 36 hours, said, nobody's coming to help me. I don't want anybody in my business. Okay, at least put an alarm necklace around your neck, connected to the police station and to us. If you have a problem, push the button. A few months later, she fell again, and she was on the floor for 6 hours. And we went over there and said, Aunt Ruthie, what happened to your alarm necklace? And she said, oh, I was afraid I would choke in my sleep at night from the necklace, so I take it off at night. So that's why I think that you have to observe, you have to respect human beings and give them something that they're going to use, like lunar lights, instead of something that we prescribed for her, which was the alarm necklace. By the way, she lived to 92 in spite of her.
yeah.
It's just something personal. I think it's high time you spoke to Julie and Merck, because after 150 trials, well, because after ideation in startup, I mean, it's time to take it to the market, and because Julie studied integrated sciences, right? He believes he can do everything on his own,
Yeah.
but then that's a fatal mistake, because if you're good at picking ideas and bringing them to fruition, the mechanical part, that part can be farmed out.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would like to. So they have gone to market. So they're doing trials in hospitals because their main customer are the hospitals. So they first have to prove that it decreases hospital-acquired infections. So they have a whole clinical study which takes a long time to do. But those 150 different things is as they do these studies. So even though it's in market, as it's being used, they realize problems that after 6 months of use, something broke. But you can't know that until it's been used for 6 months. And so they have to fix it and, re-release the next version. So I 100% agree. There is a time to test and try, and there is a time to put it out in the market, because you can spend the rest of your life trying to make something better and better and better, and you'll never get there. You have to reach a point when it works. It's the minimum, they call it the minimum viable product.
Right.
It does the basic function. You can get it out, get it working, and then you'll be able to use that information and in a few years release 2.0 or 3.0 if you want to make it better. And so that's what they're doing right now, and that's why they have 150, is that over the last 3 or 4 years, at first they probably made 50 of those on their own trying to make it work. Because in Design for America, we want them to learn those skills as well. So we asked them, while they were students, go ahead and learn how to make, molding and use 3D printers. But if they're not in universities anymore, you can hire someone or ask someone to do it for you. You don't have to do it yourself. But they made it part of their education. They wanted to learn how to make circuit building and how to, so they've gone through a lot of trial and error. But yes, there's definitely a point. Just take the leap. Take that minimum product and give it a test. And after a few years, if you still want to make this better, you can make all the changes in one go and go ahead and release it. But don't wait forever. You'll never get there.
What about patent protection?
Patent protection for swipe sense or ideas in general?
In general, so like when we're talking about human-centered designs, right? And a lot of good ideas, they seem to be so simple at first sight, but then when it's taken to the market, you can become billionaires with some simple ideas. So what about, because there are so many patent trolls.
Oh, absolutely. So it's a major problem for any of you who don't know the problem with patent trolls and patenting in general. If you invent something, if you come up with a new idea, me just telling you all these ideas, you could go and make it and sell it, and if you sold it before me, all the money is yours. If you got a patent, you have to, so the patent says it's your idea, and no one else can take it. And so that's a risk, especially when teams come up with products, and you're going to interview someone about it and ask if it works or doesn't. So the good part of a human-centered design is at the beginning, you do a lot of interviews before you have an idea at all. Before you even come up with your concept. Once you do have an idea, it's always good before you even go out and talk to people to just do a quick search. It's also part of the research to know what other ideas are already out there. So see if someone has already come up with this idea or if it's unique. One of the things we do in these universities is we ask a lot of our teams to make sure they have experts and professionals they can go to. It's part of the human-centered design process. It's not just going to normal people interacting with the problem, but also experts. And we ask them to look for a patent law expert for their school. So just in case, they can say, hi, I have this idea. I'm not sure if it's worth anything. I might not use it, but should I get a patent or should I not? And then they can do the testing, and they might be a little bit more safe. The other thing is, there's ways to do some protection. So while you do the testing, you can get people to sign forms saying they won't share your idea, so a non-disclosure agreement. So there's different ways to protect it, but it is a big risk, especially if you're testing with people when you already have your idea. And most of the students are doing this to learn design process in the first place, but if you're working in a company, they probably already have procedures around how you can share your ideas. But yeah, it is something to be aware of. When you come up with new ideas, they might be worth millions. And so before you go test it with strangers and large groups of strangers, before you go to 12 hospitals, make sure you see if you're protected and just get a quick patent for your idea. There's something called a provisional patent, which is just a temporary hold on that idea. So there's a lot of methods and research you can go into that. And some of these toolkits, design toolkits that you find online, will give you tips and information on how to do that.
Do you have any plan to launch those success products to other countries?
Like Swipe Sense, or like Design for America?
Design for America.
So it depends what you call a plan. So the organization is very young, it's only 5 years, Design for America, and they're very understaffed. Right now we're only 7, I think there's 6 staff now, and there's 21 universities, 500 to 600 students, 70 to 100 projects a term, and there's only 7 of them, and they have to get 6 of them. They have to get funding for the organization, they have to develop the educational resources, we visit the schools, we teach the process, we mentor the teams, and that's just the short list. So Design for America is currently, as a staff, focusing on America before trying to do anything else because they want to get that very successful. But what's interesting is that the students from Design for America and other staff members like me are going to other countries and saying, this is amazing, you should do it. And so we're getting other students who, all you really need to know to start design for Taiwan or design for Ghana or design is just believe in the design process and choose a problem you want to work on and just do it. The actual creating the organization, we hope that enough people, if they find each other, can create that organization. So we do get emails every once in a while from different countries to Design for America, saying, how about Design for Canada? We're right next door. And we say, that's a great idea. We can't give you resources because we don't have enough yet, but here's your process. Here's like the process guide. This is how we were created. You should try it. And the hope is that in a few years, when we're more established, they'll have more money, more resources to support other countries. But in the meantime, we just tell students and professionals to just use the process and to believe in it. And to, if there's something that they're excited about, to just do it. An early motto of Design for America was, do it first, ask for forgiveness later. Because they didn't want to delay. They're like, if you are excited about it, just do it. And then say I'm sorry later when it's important.
Are you funded?
Sorry?
Are you funded in any way?
The Design for America? Design for America is funded mainly, so the staff members, 3 of them were funded by Northwestern University. It was Northwestern's experiment. They said they'll fund Design for America to see if it works. And now they have things like the DTC program, Design Technology Communications Program, thinking. So they funded Design for America and still do, because it brings a lot of press to the university, so it's good for them. The rest of the funding comes from the individual teams and individual schools. So each of the schools normally gives some basic supplies or basic, the room to the teams. And if you remember, the early products are made out of cardboard and tape and scissors, so you don't need a lot of money to do that. And we depend on existing incubators, existing organizations and companies to help our teams go from just an idea to something else. So Kickstarter, Indiegogo. We hope that they can find other ways to get that funding. The other main way the organization gets funding is sponsorship. So, 3M, they're a company that makes Post-it notes. They really like us because we use a lot of Post-it notes. So if we put their logo in different places, they give us a little money, and that's how we support our staff. But it's essentially a nonprofit, almost no costs. It's just the teams support themselves because their first ideas are made out of cardboard. So it's very cheap. Yeah. Okay, I think that's the end of the time, but
no, Judy wants to add a little.
Yes.
Oh, sorry.
When Giselle was talking about, you get to a time when you want to take your beautiful idea out to the market. And I want to give a challenge to all of you. Friday, I'm conducting a workshop